Here we go.
Okay. This public meeting of the Board of Education's Audit Committee for May 7th, 2026 is called to order. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you all for being here. Today's agenda includes a discussion around the district's annual bond performance audit. Then we'll have a status update on the implementation of the recommendations included in the student body funds audit. Then we'll take time to reflect on the audit committee's work for the 25-26 school year and discuss some potential updates to the district's audit policy that our internal auditor is working on. We're also going to discuss audit committee membership, and our internal auditor will be providing us a status update on the Office of Internal Performance Audits activities. Finally, we will have an opportunity to discuss any requests for future audit committee meeting agenda items. So let's begin with introductions, and I think we'll start with the person who's on Zoom.
Hi, that's me. I'm Christy Split. Sorry to have to be virtual today. My daughter has a music show starting at her school at 5:30, although she'll be up closer to 6:30. So I will be, I try to kind of be off camera because I don't like being this like face behind everybody the whole time. But I'll turn my camera on for discussions and if I'm planning on saying anything. So thank you. I don't even think, did I say who I am? I'm Christy Split. I am the board member who lives in Zone 1. Thanks.
Thanks, Christy. Let's start with our council, this end.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrea Shoes, one of the in-house councils here. Yes.
Mary Catherine Moore, Internal Auditor. Janice Hansen, Internal Performance Auditor.
Evan Cole, District Student Council Representative.
Virginia LaForte, board member who lives in Zone 5, which is Northeast Portland, and I also chair the Facilities Improvement and Oversight Committee.
Stephanie Engelsman, I'm the board member in Zone 6. I live in Southeast.
Hi, Patty Sullivan, Chair of the Audit Committee. I live in Zone 3.
Hi, Caroline Zavikovsky. I'm a community member on the Audit Committee.
Jennifer Samuels, she, her. I'm also a community member on the Audit Committee.
Michelle Morrison, I'm the Chief Financial Officer and Staff Liaison to the Internal Performance Auditor in the committee.
Okay. Thank you for introducing yourselves. Next, we have public comment. Ms. Powell, do we have anyone signed up? All right. We will continue. So first we have the annual bond performance audit, and I'm going to turn that over to our senior internal auditor, Janice Hansen.
Thank you very much. External contracted bond performance auditors who are here logged in virtually to give us that quick status update, and then we'll have an opportunity based off their status update to have a quick conversation about scheduling for when their audit will be ready to present. We will also discuss the status of the outstanding bond audit recommendations, and lastly we'll discuss the bond auditor's contract. The current bond audit team is in their last year of their contract, so we are working on doing an RFP to solicit proposers for that service. So first I would like to introduce Kathy Brady and Lynn Liu. Both are here from Schoberg Schenck. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, sorry. SEC. So I'll turn it over to you first.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Sullivan and members of the Audit Committee. Thank you for having us here today to provide an audit status update. My name is Kathy Brady, and like Jenna said, I'm here with Lan Liu from our firm, Schoberg Schenck Consulting. It's a mouthful. We currently are and have been your external bond performance auditors since 2018. So in terms of status of the year seven performance audit, we kicked off the engagement in October 2025 with an entrance conference with basically the bond delivery team, the senior chief of operations, management from the prior Office of School Modernization, Presidio staff, as well as staff from other bond areas, the Office of Technology and Information Services, Office of Teaching and Learning, and the Center for Student Excellence. So between October and December of last year, we conducted what we call our reconnaissance interviews, where we meet individually with stakeholders, including the same bond delivery people that we met with at the entrance. But we also meet with individual project managers, construction managers, and support teams, procurement, finance. As you probably recall, we also met with some board members, members of the BAC, as well as district executives like the CFO, chief of staff, legal, as well as your internal performance auditor, Janice. So we do that because these interviews help us understand the current environment, see what's changed since the last time that we were on site, helps us assess risk, and just gather insights and perspectives, all of which inform and refine our audit scope. Speaking of the scope, for year 7, our audit scope focused on bond status in terms of schedule, scope, and cost for all the bond years 2012 through 2025, as well as we reviewed contingency management and usage practices. Also, as we do with each audit cycle, those efforts involve reviewing many, many documents that the district is kind enough to pass on to us, including project files and public testimony, board and BAC meeting packages, financial records, and other source documents like that. We also validate data reported publicly to the board and your committees and the BAC. And definitely we reconcile the projects and work that has been done and completed against bond pledges. We also look at testing of fiscal controls, different types of expenditures, bond activities, contracts, that sort of thing. And then finally, as part of our audit scope, we always follow up on the implementation status of prior audit recommendations. And we analyze and verify any reported actions that are taken by PPS. Some of the prior outstanding recommendations were in areas such as CMGC contracts, bond staffing, equity, business equity, workforce equity, career learning, as well as for the Center of Student Excellence. So we conducted analyses in those areas as well. So currently, we are wrapping up our audit fieldwork as we speak, and we hope to have an internal draft audit report to Dr. Franco and the RISE team by the end of this month, May, early part of June, after which we'll hold an exit conference to internally discuss the draft. And that's done so that we can consider PPS perspectives, which we try to do along the way as well, and to get any additional information before we request and receive PPS's written responses that are part of the audit, get attached to the audit, and they respond to any new year 7 audit recommendations that we might have. So currently our goal is we'll get that report, like I said, end of May, early June, and then the goal would be to finalize the report by the end of June, early July. There's been a lot of change and a lot of new players in place that have not gone through this audit cycle yet. So there might be some slight movement within that schedule, but we remain hopeful that you should see a final report publicly released within those timelines. A little bit on the reporting process. We provide the final report to PPS, and they are responsible for the actual distribution of the report and posting the report on the PPS website. It's only after that report is public that we are often asked to present the report to the BAC or to various board committees. We present it to the audit committee before the facilities committee and even at times to the board. So unfortunately today, we can't share any preliminary results or recommendations as the audit process is still considered draft and confidential until the report is final. And that's because we do that all the way up till that final report is issued. So protecting that confidentiality is very critical to us, to really ensure the accuracy, to make sure no premature misleading information is released before we look at all the evidence, and also to make sure that we discuss things with PPS so that we can get includes a quick status. Thank you for your time, and also we're more than happy to answer any questions about the audit process.
Does anybody have any questions for them? Thank you so much for your status update. I really appreciate that.
No problem, thanks.
Okay. All right, well then, just at a very high level, just to briefly talk about potential scheduling opportunities. So based off of those comments, it sounds like we need to start thinking about roughly a July meeting for scheduling to be ready to receive that final report. We've talked about potentially a July meeting earlier in the fall, and we've really struggled to try to nail down a July opportunity. So now that we are getting closer, we probably want to make some real plans on trying to figure out a meeting opportunity. Any thoughts about potential meeting opportunities in July? Any major traveling that we might need to take into consideration?
Well, summer in general is going to be hard to get everybody.
Yeah.
So I guess when we finally know we can do it,
Yeah.
just going to have to put out some feelers and get a date.
Okay. So please anticipate hearing from me in early July about getting a date really finalized to deal with that. And also, one of the things that Chair Sullivan and I have talked about is doing our best to try to get a joint meeting, especially with our BAC members. When we watched the BAC meeting in the past where the bond auditors have presented to the BAC meeting, their questions were so good that I just was like, oh, I wish we all could have benefited from that rich discussion. So there might be some reach out to the BAC to try to facilitate something. I heard that the BAC may have already planning a potential July meeting. And if that is already on their plan, there might be an opportunity there, and I will be talking to Director Split a little bit more about how we might be able to arrange that. And it looks like her hand is up, so go ahead, Christy.
Thanks. I just wanted to suggest that we do it virtually, so that way, regardless of where people may be, they could still participate. The barriers for participation with like travel are reduced if we do virtual, plus it reduces everybody's need to travel around Portland during rush hour at a time when they might not have the same like childcare stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Because to get BAC and facilities and us together would be practically impossible, but yeah, good idea. And then you can be all over the country and vacationing and still take a break from your vacation to watch a meeting, which would be very fun. So thanks, Chrissy. Good idea.
Okay, so the next of the 4 elements within this category that we're going to talk about is the status of the outstanding bond audit recommendations. And today we have Sarah Norman here, which I see she's just popped up, and she has provided a slide as it relates to the status of the implementation of those recommendations. So I will let her go first, and then, but Sarah, sorry, I didn't have a chance to talk to you before the meeting, but just do the first slide, and then we'll talk about the RFP afterwards.
I figured, I read the agenda, so I figured, no problem. Hi, everybody, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to join the meeting today, and I think I need to share my screen so you can actually see the slides. So give me just a second. I just got to get it coordinated here with technology. So hopefully you are able to see my slide. I hope you guys tell me if you can.
No, we see it.
All right, perfect. So when Presidio was contracted and started working with the Office of School Modernizations, we started with a total of 81 open audit items. And so it was a big task to kind of wrap our heads around it, read the previous audits, really understand where the office stood, and through that, really working with the staff there with the RISE team, we have been responding to the auditors with additional information and just working on that list to get things closed out. We have reported to the FIOC on a couple of items that we've dug down into and reported where we are with it. And to date, we are sitting at 21 open audit items, with 9 of them actually having to do with business equity, which recently legal just issued as of yesterday a revision to an administrative directive that we will be looking at and then updating our equity practices within the program to that. And then an additional 4 outstanding audit items are actually from year 4 regarding the CBSE, which again, some of them are kind of overcome by events because of where we are with the CBSE and now named the Grice Adair Center. So we are just continuing. We've made leaps and bounds. I mean, we've made this a focus within our office, and we are working to close out these audit items and satisfy our external auditors. We continue to work with them and answer any remaining questions that they might have. And then we're also reviewing the open audit items that are still currently open to make sure that they are still aligned, because some of them are quite old, to make sure that they are still aligned with PPS's priorities. And so in doing that, that kind of provides the update on where we are on outstanding audit item reconciliation. Are there any questions?
Yeah, hi. I have a question about that last item about confirming the items are still aligned. Will you speak a little bit more about who's involved in that and what's that process and how does that get communicated out once it's settled?
Yeah, we actually have a tracker that we put all of our information into that we share with leadership, which we report directly to Dr. John Franco, who is the COO. And then that is then communicated to externally to our external auditors, where they actually review and say whether it is complete or still open or in progress. And so that's the kind of the process of closing items out.
I think there's a step in here, this in the meeting materials, there's this great grid that I think.
I'll talk about that next.
Because
Let her do her thing first.
Because there's a board step in there as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask? So I was going to ask about this, and maybe I don't understand what this is in comparison to what
Yes. So
Sarah just
in the
talked about?
fall, in the audit committee, we talked about what did we want to do with, as it relates to the outstanding bond audit recommendations. It is technically in the audit committee's charter. This committee is the only committee that has the written charter authority to follow up on the any outstanding audit recommendations. So when we talked about this in the fall, there were 43 at the time outstanding bond audit recommendations. And I worked closely with Director Sullivan, and one of the priorities that she wanted to emphasize is do our best to try to limit the number of different committees our staff have to report to. So what I did is, this is the document that you guys all have in your packet. It looks like this. So what I did is I went into all of the outstanding bond audit recommendations and allocated them out to different committees. And I talked with the chair of each of those committees and asked if they would be willing to follow up on the implementation of those recommendations in their committees. And so as part of that, when we talked about divvying it up and asking other committees to follow up on it, one of the requests was towards the end of the year, we circle back and see how it went. So this document is for us to discuss how it went as it relates to the assigning out of the committees, because we probably want to discuss, based off of the success we've seen, whether or not that is what the audit committee would like to do moving forward, or whether or not perhaps the audit committee would like to go ahead and continue the follow-up in the audit committee as opposed to asking the other committees. However, it is nice because the FIO committee, a lot of the RISE staff already are reporting to their committee. So it's really nice of the audit committee to kind of not add an extra committee if at all possible. But I do want to kind of go through a couple of these and talk about how successful we were, and how that relates to our work moving forward. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I just want to bounce back to the question that I asked, because if you don't mind, I want to check in here. I think that, Sarah, that was about confirming, that last bullet is confirming that the open items are still aligned. Was I reading that correctly? And then who has the authority or charter? This is something I just honestly don't know. Who has the authority or charter to assess whether those open items are still priorities?
Ultimately, because they all have to do with the bond, the majority of our external auditor is auditing the bond program. So ultimately, that falls under the direction of our Chief Operations Officer and of obviously Michelle Morrison, should it have something to do with bond sales or something of that nature. And so both of them, we're reviewing everything that we are presenting and giving to our external auditors are then either accepted and they agree that it is completed and closed. All of that information is reviewed by those PPS employees.
So I just want to, I'm just trying to get clear on that. It does feel to me a little bit like that, and again, bear with me, but that does feel to me a little bit like it is saying who is getting audited gets to make the call on. That's the piece I'm a little stuck on. Thank you.
To potentially clarify, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you might be specifically asking as it relates to the response to the district's response to the recommendations, whether or not the district concurred. Typically, the term concurred has been used by the team to say, yes, we agree with the recommendation and we'll implement it, versus concur with comment is another kind of category that staff have responded. So they'll add, say, concur as in, yes, we agree, and then the comment kind of clarifies a little bit as it relates to what they're going to implement. I think you're asking whether or not the bullet point confirm items are still aligned with the PPS priorities. Specifically, Sarah, are you guys going to be going back and looking at the initial response and perhaps saying we no longer concur? Is right? That's
correct. So there are some that are just overcome by events. And Janice, I'm looking at what's posted in the board book, and this is actually not our tracker for the bond audit that we're using. We actually have one that's been going back and forth with our external auditor. And so I have one that I'm happy to pull up with our current one if everyone wants to look at it, that shows that whether what the PPS reporting status is to the external auditors, and then what audit verification status they are still looking at. But yeah, what I mean by that is some of the items that are from year 4, just as an example, establish a framework for CBSE management and staff with clear roles and responsibilities, defined authority and accountability. We've already done that. and we've provided that, and it's overcome by events because now we have a building. So a lot of these audit items that were done in year 4 are kind of at that point in time, and everything's kind of moved past. So that's what I mean by aligning the audit item with where we currently are with progress of the program and PPS priorities.
Did that answer your question?
And if I'm not mistaken, weren't some of these more kind of having to do with policy?
Yes,
as
and
well?
I'm going to kind of
So-
talk through some of that.
Okay.
So let's do that next.
Well, can I
Go
ask
ahead.
just a quick follow-up question? So I was counting, and I appreciate, Sarah, that you have a different tracker, which you're willing to share out, which I would love to have shared out, because I was going through counting you say there's 21 open on the form we have in front of us. There's 40 still
There's 40,
open.
right,
Yeah, so
right.
it sounds like your tracker is different because of these circumstance and time and event thing. So if you can share that with us, that would be helpful if that's what's going out.
Sure. I mean, and it's also updated because it's a working document that we're working with our external auditors on. And so as we deliver information to them, they are going through and updating their responses to us and what we need to respond to them on. And so our audit log is active on a weekly basis as we are delivering additional information. So I don't know, on the copy that I'm looking at, there's no date and time and/or revision number on this document that's in Board Book. So I don't know how recent this report was made. So, but I'm happy to share out our full report that has the comments on it from not only PPS, but also from our external auditor.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have Janice be part of that line of communication so she has visibility to what's going on in real time?
It's no problem. We can copy her on all the emails. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Because I did share this document with you, Sarah, and gave.
Yeah, back in January. I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's just talk a little bit about how things went this year for us. So again, I am not privy to the current status that Sarah is, but it sounds like I will in the future. So this document could potentially be way better updated moving forward. But for today, the purpose of today's meeting, what I did is I put in the comment here to say who kind of we referred the recommendation to and whether or not there's been some follow-up. So if you look, and on the far right-hand side, I know it's very small, so you can barely see the numbers, but for example, number 2, you can see like that one was discussed in the FIO meeting on March 17th. And I went through the presentation from that meeting and found what staff reported in their presentation to the FIO meeting. And for that one, staff are reporting the implementation is complete. So I would say we were very successful on that item specifically. One of the things that we asked Director Lafort to be here for today to join in this conversation is just to kind of talk about how it's gone in her committee. And one of the things that she and I have worked out over the course of this year is as she's doing her agenda setting, when she looks at how much she has going on the agenda, she'll shoot me an email and say, can you give me your top 5 or 3, depending on the month, priorities for us to follow up in the committee. And as you can kind of go through these comments, you'll see each of the recommendations that she's been able to follow up on. And the outcome of that follow-up is listed in the comments there. One of the areas that I'm not sure we've been very successful at is as it relates to the recommendations that were referred out to the policy committee. There's quite a few, like very specifically, the recommendation is, bear with me, PPS board. So this is recommendation number 4. So it's on that front page of that document. But the PPS board should revisit its equity and purchasing and contracting policy. There's really nothing staff can do. We really need the board to take some action to implement this recommendation. So we probably need to talk about potentially how can we follow up on that in our committee. Also, there were a couple of recommendations as you kind of go further down, specifically as it relates to the ones for the Grace Adair Center for Excellence. We didn't really have a committee this year that was designed to follow up on those recommendations specifically. So I sent an email to our board leadership and asked for some suggestions on how to follow up on that. And I haven't gotten much, haven't been very successful in that. However, I did talk to Director LaForte last week, and she agreed to pull those into the facilities committee. So I think the ones that were identified related to the Grace Adair Center for Excellence, she's planning to follow up on. So there's some give and take, like we can potentially rearrange how we're trying to follow up on these. I just wanted to give us an opportunity to talk about it, how successful we were, and kind of come up with an approach for moving forward. That's all I have to say, and I'll let you guys ask the questions from here.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to first comment on how Director LaForte took that on, and most of them had to do with your committee, and you did it. And really appreciated it, because I think it saved staff. They didn't have to come here. They just went to one meeting. So that part of it worked. But some of the things, it seems like they're going to have to come back to us, and we're going to have to follow through.
I think that's my thought, but I want to hear from the committee as a whole as to whether or not that makes sense, or if you want to give it an alternative, some other way of doing it. But that's what I was thinking, but I want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
So Janice pulled this together, I don't know, was it summer? Was it summer, fall? It was a while ago, and sat down and was able to walk me through what was initially felt very overwhelming. And I thought and I still believe that part and parceling it to our committees like this was extremely effective for me as a committee chair. It was really great to just have a checklist of all the things that we could bang out in the committee. And we did. We still have a little ways to go. We're really close. But I found it incredibly helpful and useful and strategic. So I really appreciate all of the effort that went into this. This was a lot. And so I just actually want to say thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
You made my job a lot easier. So
Good.
appreciate it.
Oh, one other thing. The TLE committee had 2 recommendations, and I kind of missed a couple of my meetings with Director Chase Miller, Director Chase Miller, but we're back on track, and we talked just 2 weeks ago, and I gave her everything that she needs to follow up on those in the TLE committee, and it sounds like that is her plan. So we might have some additional success still yet this year in the TLE committee as it relates to the 2 that were assigned to them.
Can I add something? So I sit on, as you know, I sit on the policy committee, and I am surprised to see so many of these assigned to the policy committee, because that I know we haven't seen these in the policy committee, except perhaps number 4, because as I understand it, the policy committee is working through every single policy. So presumably this one will end up being worked through, but the rest of them, maybe I've missed something, but I note that you said you emailed in August, which was quite a long time ago. Has there been any additional reach out from you to policy chair?
Yeah, and I certainly sent the email to the chair of each committee initially, and it's really the chair of the committees. Each chair of the committee kind of has their authority to kind of set their agenda for their meetings. So I can only suggest and ask, and it certainly sounded at the beginning when I mentioned it. I did send Michelle, our director, to pass an email, and then I followed up with her in person. And it sounded like there was going to be some movement, and I'm sure she has other priorities. I'm not sure everything that's going on in the policy committee right now, but this just doesn't seem to have had movement. So we got to figure out some way to make some movement on here. And also, side note that Director DePass and I have just gotten back into regular check-in meetings. So I'll have more of an opportunity to remind her more routinely about these outstanding recommendations as we move forward. But there has been most of the year where I really haven't had that opportunity to really check in with her.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I suppose, so we had, I don't know the reasoning behind it, but there were 2 policy committee meetings in the fall, I think, that were canceled because we didn't have anything on the agenda. So I think it would be great, and it sounds like you sent the email in August and have had a little bit of follow-up, but not much. I think it would be great to send just a reminder email that this is assigned to the policy committee and perhaps include the whole policy committee as well.
Got it.
You know, because things can fall through cracks and get overlooked, but it sounds like you've been doing some follow-up, and if we want to keep it assigned to the policy for at least the remainder of this calendar year, but again, I don't know, so if you think time is of the essence and that we should pull it back to audit, I would also support that, because we're here and, we can work on that, and you come to this, and then staff doesn't have to go as many places. I see Director Split has an idea too, but that would be, I'll leave it up to you whether you think we should
Okay.
pull it back. I'm happy to, obviously I sit on both, so I get the information either
Yeah.
way.
Okay, Director Scott?
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say that I think that using the term assigned just is like maybe a little strong, and that might be part of the difference in how things have been handled by different committees. One committee can't assign work to another committee. The emails were coming from Janice. So it's more like she was just trying to like parse out the work, not assign it. And so I just think that I just want to be cautious in feeling like it was a dropped ball or something she was assigned and didn't do. It's more like it was suggested, and maybe she just decided that this wasn't the thing she wanted to work on this year. So I just wanted to like make clear that we don't have the power to assign anything from this committee to another committee.
Thank you for that, Christy. Words mean a
And
lot.
I also just wanted to say that I'm open to like whatever solution we want to arrive at to keep things moving on getting this backlog done. I think it's really important that, and I think it's pretty clear to me that Sarah and her team are ready to make sure that we're doing things best practices. So I really appreciate that commitment. And I also just, since she has her hand up anyway, I am sort of curious what your thoughts are about how this was sort of divided up so that we could get through the list in like the most efficient way possible. So I'm open to your ideas too, if other people are hopefully open to at least hearing them and dismissing them or not. But I think it would be good to know just how you think it would work best to kind of process and get through these before we get a whole new list of possible recommendations that we need to add to the queue after this summer. So yeah, open to your ideas, but also very open to just do whatever out of this meeting.
Thank you. And if I could just speak really quick, I want to just say that our office and the staff, I want to recognize the staff, has made an incredible effort since we were contracted to reduce the outstanding audit items that have been listed from the external auditors. So I want to take a moment to recognize the feat that the staff has truly, and the work that they've put in to do that. And that will continue. As we get year 8 that's going to come in, we're going to have items that we're going to review, and we're going to either agree or show the process that we have in place in order to comply with our external auditors program. And we will continue to do that. It's been great to talk about the audit items in the FIO meetings and the board meeting. I think I presented on audit items at a board meeting at some point. And so, we're here to serve. So however the board members and directors decide to direct us to do that, we are happy to do it. And we are here to comply with our auditors and provide clear answers on what is happening with the bond program. I mean, we not only have our external auditor, we have our BAC meetings where we have an accountability committee there, and we report monthly to the board of education. And so we will continue that moving forward.
I just want to say, just follow up on that, Sarah. I do want to tell you that I appreciate how you really jumped right in. We started these lists. I think we started knocking these out in December, which is, right. I mean, you've been with us for a while, but it was right when we really, we're getting into the contract. So I just want to tell you that I appreciate that you never, ever tried to put off the audit items, that you jumped right in and always had a response and a complete answer. So I just want to thank you for that. I think it would have been really easy to try to push it off a little bit, and that didn't happen. So thank you.
I just thank you, Director Split, for that. Again, 8 months in, I was looking at year 1 from 2018 and assuming that someone had assigned. I don't understand the process yet. So I that makes me sort of think that maybe we do just pull it back to audit if it is originating in an audit committee rather than sending it out. We just keep it here.
Well, one opportunity that we're about to get in July is we will hear feedback from the bond auditors, because they mentioned in their scope they follow up on all outstanding recommendations. So we will get a really great status. I mean, it's within the bond auditor's purview to decide whether or not whatever actions staff have taken actually address and have fully implemented the recommendation. And in their scope, and we'll get that, they cover that each year. So the 43 outstanding bond audit recommendations that were included at the end of the year 6 report that we got last summer in June, when they do the report roughly this summer in July, if they have received evidence of the implementation, they will sign off on them, and we will be left with just a list of things that are still outstanding. So we wanted to talk about it here, and I got your feedback. And how about we see how it goes? We'll keep the assignments to the committees through the rest of this academic year. Try to get the last couple implemented, and we'll see how it goes with the bond auditor's report. And then in our first meeting in September, we'll decide for the next year, if that's okay with everybody, on either separating them out, or we could separate some out to the facilities committee and keep the rest. Wherever we're finding the best success that works the most efficiently is the best opportunity that we could get to get them implemented. Does that sound like a really good idea for everybody?
Yeah, because we'll have more information then we
Yep.
we can make that decision. Did you get your question answered,
I think
Jennifer?
so. Did any?
I think I understood your question. You heard, like, who decides if something is essentially relevant or not relevant anymore? I heard your question. I'm not sure I heard a direct answer either. I think we probably want to follow. I mean, how do we close things out if it's, when we say not relevant, is it because it's old? This might be a question for Sarah. Is it just because some of these were real old, and I appreciate that you captured every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Are we at a point where we're only addressing 2017 forward, or 20? I think we still have some stuff from 2017 that we want to cover for sure. But is it like 2020 forward?
Well, I
don't know
think
who
that
has
is
that
the
conversation or
decision
decides.
of the bond auditors.
Okay.
So if in fact the RISE team has said this recommendation is no longer relevant, then the bond auditors in their year 7 report in July will say the district has decided not to implement, and they will say either we reaffirm the outstanding recommendation, meaning we still think it's relevant to implement, or they won't. But that is under their sole purview. They get to decide whether or not there's still relevance to a recommendation that may be old and staff may feel is no longer relevant. Ultimately, they get to decide to make that final.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciated your question, and it was still a little bit in the air for me too, so thank you. And thank you, Janice.
Okay. Sorry, that actually took a little longer than I was hoping, so we're running a little bit behind. But the last element, as it relates to the bond audit, bond performance audit, is discussion about the RFP. And Sarah did a second slide for us just to give us a brief update on where we are with the RFP for the bond performance audit.
I did. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find my microphone button now. Okay. Can you guys see the slide? I hope it's large enough. So we are in the midst of developing the RFP for the bond performance auditor. We are collaborating with the senior internal auditor, financial operations manager, legal counsel, and purchasing and contracting for input of the subject matter experts for this RFP. The RFP is still in review and not yet published, so it limits what I can share. Purchasing and contracting is scheduled to publish the RFP in mid-June. Proposals will be evaluated based on the criteria and scoring within the RFP. And the awarded contract will be for one-year term and renewable for 4 additional years, which follows the same status that we've done in the past with our external bond auditor. That the district has questions?
Just a quick clarification on that last bullet point. It's been the practice to do our first term as a 4-year term and then renewable for 4 additional years via 1-year contracts. So maybe it's just if we switch the 4 and the 1, then it probably makes sense. But I just want to clarify my understanding that the first part of the term will be a 4-year term.
I will clarify that. I will clarify that for you, Janice, because I think that I'm not, again, I want to clarify that with purchasing and contracting because I think there was a bond recommendation to have a bit more flexibility with our external auditors. And so I just want to clarify that, but I'm happy to come back to the committee.
I will add that I have been included and they have, purchasing and contracting has been working collaboratively and asked me for my input. Quite pleased with how well it's going. So the next thing for the audit committee to talk about as it relates to this topic is as it relates to the panel that will be scoring the RFPs when they come in. When we did the financial statement contract, we had Director Sullivan and one of our community members, Caroline, and myself serve as 3 members of the scoring panel and then PPS staff assigned 2 staffers to, also sit on that panel. And as Director Sullivan and I have been talking over the course of this year, she has mentioned that she would be willing to give up her spot on that scoring panel, potentially to Director Lafort or potentially Director Split, as Director Split may have more relevant experience being the BAC liaison and vice with Director Lafort. So we are starting to get close. It's probably going to happen over the summer. It sounds like we're getting really close to getting that RFP out. So we don't have to make a final decision today, but just wanted to throw it out there that we will need to talk about that over the course of the summer, who will be serving on that panel. And one other opportunity we may want to consider is seeing if one of the BAC members would be interested in being on the panel, just to have a variety of experts. So y'all want to talk about that now, or do you want to wait until over the summer? But it's going to be coming sooner rather than later.
I think we should probably wait since we're behind already.
Okay.
But
Can I, yeah, I think I'm, oh, Sarah, it looks like Sarah wants to say something.
I just want to say that the panel has to be set by purchasing and contracting, and we have to make sure that whomever's on that is approved. And so I just want to be careful with I don't know if BAC members can be on that evaluation committee. I just want to make sure that we run all that through legal and purchasing and contracting. I'm not saying no, I just want to make sure we double check, because normally we provide options to purchasing and contracting on who can be on the evaluator committee, and then they reply back to us on what that committee size is and what that makeup is. So I just wanted to say that, and that's it.
I'm glad you said that, because I think you've now confused me even more. So my original question was going to be, it sounded like Presidio was going to be in charge of deciding who audits Presidio?
No.
Okay. But then you just said that
it has nothing to do with
the bond.
Presidio, the
Yeah.
bond. I just want to, but yes, our department writes the RFP for this procurement. So we have consulted with PPS Legal, Janice. TJ has been in communication with Janice to add to that. And then it goes to purchasing and contracting for final review. And that's kind of where we are right now. And then we will Janice is included in this, we'll make recommendations to purchasing and contracting for the evaluation committee for the proposals that will come in for external auditors to serve the district.
And at that point, that's very helpful. Thank you. So then at that point, anyone who's working on implementing bond work is not on that committee.
We do not, no, we don't want to be on that evaluation.
Yeah, that's what I figured you'd say. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's when Director Sullivan, the other people who have in the past been on the panel to.
Correct.
And again, this is so outside my wheelhouse, so I use the wrong term sometimes, but everyone who submits a proposal in response to the RFP is given to the committee. There's no weeding out that happens before everyone, they get to see all the proposals that are sent in?
They get to see all the proposals, and they get to evaluate and rank every single proposal that is submitted to the district.
Great,
and then
okay.
if you want to hold interviews, you have that opportunity to do that as well. So
Perfect, thank you.
No, you see every single one.
Thank you.
okay, any more questions about bonds? Okay, I think it's time to move on. So next on the agenda, it's a status update on the implementation of recommendations included in the Student Body Funds Audit. Chief Morrison, would you please introduce this topic?
Thank you, Director Sullivan and Janice, for your support. I do want to give some gratitude to our controller. She has been with us for about a year as well. That is Nadatai Nicolescu. She has been fantastic in this work and making improvements all the way along. So I know that in the packet there was a grid with some very tiny print that we have been working from in terms of the original recommendations, an initial response, and then the status of implementation. And I'm not planning to go through them one by one. I would rather just give you kind of the high level where the gaps were and the steps that we've taken to close those gaps. All right, so there was a real emphasis on a need for in-person training, one-to-one, both as staff turn over throughout the year and not just one-time training. We do have one FTE support person that is out in schools now working with our bookkeepers and our business managers managing those student body funds. But we've really increased our standard of training and made it more available to folks. And we do come out on request. We also have offered training for supervisors which would be our administrators that oversee this work to make sure that there's a level of accountability as well. We did add our annual Pepper training, which is our platform for, it's kind of asynchronous. People can access that when they're available. And for anyone who has access to EPES, which is our software that we use for SBF accounting, they have to have this training completed before they can gain access to that. For our P cards, we have an infraction model, which kind of gives guidelines and training on when you need to do what by and how you need to proceed. And if transactions occur outside of that framework, they begin a series of infractions, which can eventually lead to discipline or termination of the P card or whatever. And so we've incorporated that same framework into infractions for when we notice that things aren't reconciled in a timely way, deposits aren't happening in a timely way, and oversight isn't occurring as it should be. So that gives us a kind of a standardized framework for not just training, but for following up with additional support as needed. We do hope to incorporate functions into the new ERP. You've heard a lot about that. It's going to have a lot of great functionality. Some systems can be set up as a little mini version of it to provide support to our schools that have their own independent student body fund accounts. So that's good news coming. And we're also offering additional support for SBF users and folks that access that. Even though we're taking reductions in the business office, we're reworking some of the things that we do in order to provide a better level of support and oversight to our schools. So those are all my talking points. I can try and answer questions. Nadatai is also here to answer questions if they go beyond my level of understanding.
I don't think I have any questions, more a remark. I'm pleasantly surprised. Is it usual? I haven't seen these, obviously. I didn't see this one last year. Is it common for a district to agree with so many of the recommendations and then work towards implementing those? It's very impressive to see agree, and then taking steps to implement the recommendations.
Yeah, we definitely want to improve our work.
Yeah.
So in prior districts that I've been in, there's actually the third-party independent auditor does that work, and then we implement those recommendations. Okay. So student body funds, they are an area of risk that concern everyone involved with that. So we're happy to do the work.
Thank you.
And student body funds, just so I'm clear, those are things that's basically kind of like cash on site, or then with probably student stores, yearbooks, events like game admission, things like that. Okay.
Yeah, cash handling, online stores, things like that.
Great.
Okay.
Just quickly, typically what I try to do in advance of the audit committee meetings is review the supporting documentation that's provided. And what I'll do is go in and confirm once I get the evidence, and then gray them out so everybody can see that they are grayed out and completed and confirmed, implemented. Chief Morrison's team did send over a couple of documents this week, and I just didn't get a chance to review them and confirm the implementation. So what I will do is over the course of the next week, I will send out an updated template with graying out the ones that I was able to confirm. So you will have an updated list acknowledging the hard work and the ones that we were able to confirm are implemented. I don't want to wait for a whole nother year to show you that we confirmed those. So I will do that next week and get an updated email sent out so you'll be able to see which ones I was able to confirm.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, just regarding the student body funds audit. As a as a leader of several clubs at my school which fundraise, the process for accessing some of those student body funds is notoriously difficult because of the various forms of people that we have to go through. Is any of the training that's being given to these people on site to is any of that trying to streamline the process of accessing those funds?
I can get more information about that. I haven't asked that specifically. We were more focused on controls, which would probably be the opposite experience for you.
Exactly. It's intentional.
Yeah, it's never our intent, though, to be a barrier either. So I'll check in on that training and with my team as well.
Good question. Any others? All right. Thank you, Chief Morrison. We're going to go on to the next agenda topic. Now we're going to reflect on the audit committee's work this year and review the district's audit policy and charter, which I know Janice has been really working hard on to make it very workable for her and for the district. So Janice, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you so much. So I wanted to take an opportunity towards the end of our year, as we've been together for a whole year, to talk about, how things have gone in the audit committee and provide each of you with an opportunity to give me some feedback on what things have been going well and potentially feedback on things that are not going well that you would like to see some changes in. I'm always receptive to input and I actually really appreciate it. One of the things that I heard a lot from some of you or most of you this year is that you really appreciated the document that we created for the work plan that laid out all of the agenda all the meetings and the agendas for the entire year. So you kind of had an idea of what we have planned for the year. And so I will keep doing that, but I also want to start with an opportunity for any other feedback because I just haven't heard much. So I just want to make sure and give that opportunity for feedback. Other than the one work plan document, are there any requests or preferences or thoughts that you want to share?
Well, I just like to share how I appreciate how you go over things with us individually and really explain what's happening. Because without that, I might just be staring blankly at some of this stuff. So I really do appreciate it. And as you said, I really like knowing what's happening through the year. Mm-hmm. I like that we set up every Thursday? Yeah, we got it there. And we can always cancel it, but it's there. So that really worked well this year. I appreciate it.
So it sounds like we're happy with having monthly scheduling next year for a monthly meeting with the option to cancel that meeting if we don't have anything necessary, but it would be there. We would have an opportunity to meet every month. When I look at the things that I feel like I need to bring to the audit committee, I really think it needs to be quarterly. But I really appreciated the opportunity to have that meeting monthly. And this year it seemed to work out well. We canceled a couple because we didn't have any topics specifically. So I am totally supportive of that concept for next year. Sounds like a good plan for everybody. Yeah? One other thing that I did bring that I wanted to ask for feedback on is in your packet, there is a one page that is a, sorry, the matrix. It's an audit committee matrix. That's it. So when I have been doing some research on different audit committee charters, I found a charter that had this matrix, this right here, inside the charter. So what I did is I took the template from the example charter and I popped in just the top two or three responsibilities of the audit committee, so y'all can look at what the charter would look like as it applies to PPS. I didn't list all the responsibilities, but I wanted to give you an idea of what the matrix would look like as it applies to PPS and the work that our audit committee does. So I'm looking for feedback on whether or not you guys feel there's value in having that matrix with identifiable deliverables being included in the charter. Perhaps it's just an idea. I thought it was really cool when I saw the charter with the matrix, and so I wanted to share and get your thoughts. I don't have a final charter ready to present for tonight, but I am still doing a little bit more research, so this is the chance to give me, hey, we really like this, then I'll keep going with this. And if you think it's a little overkill, I'm happy to, move on without.
This is a little hard for me to read, but I do like the idea of knowing what we have to do. And unfortunately, what we have to do isn't always scheduled, scheduled the way we want it, because they can't present when we want it. But something like this is okay, but I'm having trouble reading this, actually.
Okay. Kind of walk you through what that, what the matrix kind of give you a better understanding of how it would work. Let me borrow this. Sorry. I have a whole stack and then I can't find this one. But just at a very high level, the audit committee responsibility, the top one listed is the review the charter for the audit committee. So how would the audit committee accomplish that objective? That's what that second column is for. What's the deliverable tied to that responsibility? And then how often does that responsibility need to happen? So on the example of the charter, it's really best practices to reconsider it every 3 years. So it would only need to be reconsidered every 3 years, and in the matrix, we would put when the last time it was reviewed, so you would have an idea like, well, it's been 3 years, so we know this needs to happen this year. But that's high level, but I'll give you more details next week. Any other thoughts?
I was going to say I really appreciate this because I like roadmaps, and as I'm learning, realizing when things have to happen annually or when things get slipped in, I just really like a roadmap of knowing when we're going to look at something, and then also being able to check off, like, did we accomplish this? And I see, like, one of them is review annually at one of the October, November, or December meetings, and so then if we have this roadmap and there's no check off by the time we get to January, there's sort of like we've got to do this immediately because people are busy, things get really stacked up on an agenda, and so we know, oops, let's make sure that that's top of the agenda on January because we didn't. So I like this.
Good.
That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Yeah, means we don't miss anything.
Yes. You know, I kind of thought this might be a good tool, especially as we transition to, hopefully not next year, but in the future for a different audit committee chair. This might really be helpful for them to help organize. So I think I hear what you guys are saying, and so I will move forward working on this and present something along these lines whenever I have the charter updated. Okay, so that was just one piece. The other part, and also just keep in mind, you're welcome to give me feedback at any point. So just because you didn't say anything to me today, please feel free to send me an email if you have any thoughts you want to share, because I really appreciate it. The next part of this topic that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the audit committee, or the performance audit policy. So I was really excited to see the board retreat earlier this week, where the board had an opportunity to get together and talk about values and as it relates to policy writing. And I was really excited because it was so timely, and I feel like it really sets up the lays a really good foundation for having this conversation about the auditing policy, because it is one of the 1000 series that it sounds, at least based off of the discussion in the board retreat, that the board is, or the policy committee is going to focus in on these 1000 series, utilizing some of the techniques that you learned in the board retreat. And I am very excited because the timing is just really good. This never happens. Audits are almost always, a year behind, but it just would really laid a good foundation for engaging in this conversation. Because that happened just this week, I would like to have an opportunity to put together a little bit better of a presentation, where I am able to tie the values that were discussed to the proposed updates. So I wanted to just ask you today for some feedback on 3 key categories that are relatively new to the policy. So in your stack of documents, you will see a redline version of the policy. And if you flip in that document to page 9, at the bottom of page 9, this kind of starts a new category. And the category is risk assessment, 3-year audit plan, and annual org plan. So what I will be proposing is transitioning to a 3-year audit plan and risk assessment, and the annual work plan being based off of an idea of what that means. So for bullet point A, it says every 3 years, the office will require an enterprise risk assessment be conducted. And it should identify, assess, and prioritize and respond to opportunities and threats that affect the achievement of district objectives. The enterprise risk assessment can be conducted internally or based on a recommendation from the auditor and budget constraints. The office may contract with a third party to complete the risk assessment. In our meetings, for most of you, I've had an opportunity to show you an example of an enterprise risk assessment that PPS has received in the past. And I showed you what that looked like. And I have another example, a more updated example of what a risk assessment with a 3-year audit plan would look like for us to conduct internally. So in your packet, there is a section called Additional Documentation, Part 2. In there, there is an example of a 3-year audit plan and risk assessment that you guys can take a look at to see what that would look like, and will give you a better high-level understanding of an example of what I am proposing. So I'm sure not all of you have had a chance to read that 3-year plan in detail. So you are welcome to reach out to me incrementally and give me that feedback. If you have any questions or thoughts about that category or any concerns about me proposing a transition to that, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. The second category that is relatively new is on page 11, and that is the external audits and review section. So under the proposed language, whenever the district is having any type of audit being done, either internally or by externally, the departments under audit will need to consult with me to share like the scope of what the audit is and also the outcome of the audit. An example of when this happens is ODE will sometimes, or oftentimes actually, audit compliance with some of like special education, amongst other programs. And it is really of value for me to know what they're testing and what the outcome of those audit results are. It will really impact my ability to do a formal risk assessment because I will have better insight into the individual departments. So that's there's lots of thoughts that went into why I'm proposing it, but that's kind of overarching. So it's a newer category, and so please read that category in a little bit more detail. And if you have any thoughts you want to share with me as it relates to that, that would be very helpful. Ideally, I'll have an updated proposed audit policy for the audit committee, along with a presentation in our next meeting. And ideally, hopefully, the audit committee will be able to vote to refer this policy out to the policy committee for the next steps. And I talked to Director Sullivan about this, and we were both kind of excited just how timely that conversation was. So I really want to capitalize on that and keep the momentum because it was such a relevant conversation and it will really help us have this conversation. So I'm going to do my very best to get an updated proposed policy that we can refer out in our next meeting.
I have a question. I'm sure somebody else does too, but so when you talk about the 3-year plan, because now we sort of give you ideas for an audit, and when I was first on the committee, I thought, oh, that'll be done in a year. Then I realized you have to figure out how to do the audit.
Right.
It takes about a year to do that. So what the board or the audit committee and the board is suggesting, how does it fit in the 3-year plan?
So, in lieu of doing a risk assessment, I have really used the opportunity, because I haven't done one and I've been super transparent about I need to do one and it needs to get done and it's required. But in lieu of that, I have been asking for suggestions a little bit more openly and actively. I sent a list to each board member saying, hey, give me your thoughts. And I used all of the input that I got to, as not a substitution, but kind of as a little bit of a risk assessment since I didn't do one. So moving forward, the risk assessment will drive the audit topics that the audit committee will want to select. And I will do, you will see much closer of a proposal from me as it relates to, it will be less asking for audit topic ideas and more about me talking to each of you about the risk assessment and how that risk assessment should drive the audits moving forward. And that's the way it's supposed to be. I just needed a way to, generate areas of risk, of concern from a variety of stakeholders. So that's how way I have been doing it. But moving forward, you will see a little bit of a change as it relates to that. The proposal that comes to the audit committee will be driven by the risk assessment. You will still get to give input and collaborate with the audit topic ideas, as will all the other stakeholders. I meet with other board members as well as PPS staff, leadership, to get their inputs as well. So there'll still be the same level of input opportunity, but you will see the proposal being provided based off a risk assessment and not so much just on the ideas that I have gathered based off the risks that you guys we have talked about.
Or sometimes it's not even risk we're thinking about as much as just something that's bothering us. So, yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Janice about this?
I just have one question. Again, I'm so new to I feel like I'm new when all these questions I'm asking, but I am new because I've done this before. Why? So I noticed the documents to our Seattle Public Schools, and I'm curious. I imagine that Seattle Public Schools internal audit work plan is based probably at least in part on the equivalent of the Washington School Board Association and/or the equivalent of Washington ORSs and rules and laws and OARs. So why Seattle, and what are best practices as recommended in Oregon?
Yeah.
Is Seattle sort of leading the way so tell me why Seattle?
Thank you for that. So I used to work for Seattle in their internal audit department before I came to PPS. So I am so lucky to have every source and my colleagues that remain at Seattle Public Schools to talk about audit topics. And really what the proposed, also in your packet, you will see a audit report that was done by an external audit firm of the internal audit function at Seattle School District. And I really appreciated that audit report because in a small internal audit department, often the recommendation to be more efficient is to get more staff, whereas this really focused in on how to be get the best out of the department of the size that it is. And we are of a same size. Currently, they have their chief auditor and one additional auditor. They also have a full-time FTE auditor who is bond funded and focuses solely on auditing bond funded projects. But other than that, we are very similar in size. That is my experience. The 3-year plan that I gave you an example of, the standard is audit standards, and it's not isolated to a state per se. So the founding principles of how it was generated would be applicable for everyone. Of course, there are some regulatory differences, And even now, I'm still shocked at, I keep finding things that I thought were standard practice, but then I realize, oh, that was only in Washington. In Oregon, it's not an expectation. So there are some differences, but the driving factor is audit standards for the expectation of what is being provided and not necessarily in state specific. And the reason why I use Seattle, and I'm part of a quarterly group that meets together, the Council of Great City Schools. All the internal auditors get together once a quarter, and we talk about whatever we want to talk about, and it's super, it's great to have that opportunity. And there are not very many departments of this size. So when I was doing my research, I did try to look specifically for school districts that are of our size. It really makes a difference. Like in our last meeting, one of the audit executives was talking about how meaningful it was to lose like 2 employees, 2 of their team, and they had a team of 30. 31. They had 30. They had 31 auditors, and they were losing 2. That's just a different perspective than our perspective. So I did try to find school districts where we were of similar size. You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions. Thank you for this. My biggest question is just what kind of timeline are you looking for feedback? Because I definitely think I'm going to want to spend some time with this.
Can we please say 2 weeks? Ideally, I would like to present the updated policy for the audit committee in our last meeting of this year. And at the very end of our meeting agenda, we do need to talk roughly about scheduling the June 18th meeting. That is what is already on the calendar for our final meeting for this year. And I think we might need to do a little bit of rescheduling. We've had a couple of committee members mention some challenges. So if we update that and extend it maybe a little later in June, then we could go an extra week. But how much time would you like?
I mean, as much as I can get,
Okay.
but I'll make it work.
Okay.
But I was also wondering, if you have looked at other examples besides Seattle Public Schools, and even outside of schools, maybe there are a lot of other very small audit functions in counties or cities.
In universities, I found quite a few. Yeah.
So, I think having a really strong policy for this office is going to be really valuable. So finding those best practices, those other examples.
Great. I will bring some additional examples next
Great.
time. Thank you so much for that. But I think you'll also give me lots more feedback
I might.
in the next couple of weeks. Which I appreciate very much. Like, you guys do not understand how nice it is to have another professional auditor to brainstorm with, and I just really appreciate that.
Can I ask a question? That's a perfect segue to my question. You mentioned that, did you say that Seattle has an internal bond auditor that solely focuses on bond funds?
Yeah.
Is that common across, I don't know if you know the answer to this, because I'm curious, because it is, we have as much, more money in bonds than we do in our general fund.
Yeah.
And hearing that makes me wonder if that's something we would want to consider as a board, as a position that's funded with the bond. In part because, we have restructured the department and we are working with, an owner's rep that's, essentially embedded with the department. I've wondered, where does the information live? Does everything live on our systems, or is it also on outside systems? Where is the district's information? Mm-hmm. So that's crossed my mind. So I just wanted to just flag that as something, I would be open to considering.
Thank you for that. I had a feeling that this question might be asked. And so I just did a little bit of preliminary research. And unfortunately, I didn't look to see how common it is. So I can't answer that element of it. But I did look into confirm, like, yes, in fact, it is 100% bond funded. And I gained a little bit of an understanding of what exactly a bond funded internal auditor would look at. So I can speak a little bit to that, and as we move forward. I have been thinking about this a lot because one of the things you may hear me say recently is when we do unprecedented things, we need to have unprecedented oversight. When we do new activities, and delivering 3 brand new schools all kind of at once is relatively unprecedented for our school district anyways. And so the risk associated with that activity is also unprecedented. So I am open to that conversation, maybe not right this minute, but I am open to it, and I've been thinking about how much of my time that I use monitoring that activity to identify risks, and whether or not that's sustainable over the course of 3 years. I will be super transparent and say that I have been very mindful of the bond-related activity over the course of this year with intention because of the staffing changes. And so I've been paying careful attention, watching all the BAC meetings, reviewing all of the documents that are available. But that is not something I would like to do long term. And ideally, as the BAC updated their charter, that's going to be coming back to the facility committee, and they are willing to take on a little bit more responsibilities, which is awesome. So when things kind of get into a cycle, like, for example, Sarah said she'd share her documents with me, that will make it a lot easier for me to understand and monitor the level of risk associated with that activity. Right now, in the past few months, I just haven't had that purview. So it is possible that it is feasible for me to monitor the level of risk at a high level, but I need a little bit more time. But I'm open to the conversation in the near future.
Well, you gotta do 2 jobs? That doesn't seem quite fair. I would like to reiterate how often Janice says how much she appreciates you too. I hear it all the time. So thank you, Janice. Do you want to say anything more, or are there any more questions?
I think that's all I have as it relates to this topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is get feedback, look at this, so that when we work on the policy in policy committee, we can agree that it's what we'd like them to
Yep.
look at.
Ideally, we'll have the core content referred to the committee, the policy committee, from the audit committee. And based off the conversation, I think I'm very close to being able to tie the proposed changes to the values that were discussed in, so I think it will do well once it gets to the policy committee. There might be some wordsmithing and stuff, but I really think this updated version will align very well with a lot of the things that were talked about. So once we pass it on to the policy committee, I think it will be successful based off of what you guys were talking about in your retreat.
I'm seeing the lawyers sort of directly behind this way. Before we work on it and give you feedback on it, has this gone through legal?
Oh.
Can it go through legal before we start feedback, so we don't do
Yes.
feedback and then have to have something undone?
So
Or what
I
stage
have
does it go
been
through
meeting
legal?
regularly with Liz Large in our legal department. I've provided her, and she and I have gone back and forth multiple versions of the policy. I just had a quick chat with her at 3:30 today, right before our meeting, and she has done another review of the version that I'm showing you today. That she has done another review and given me feedback. So she and I are going to meet next week to go over that. Also, I have been working with Chief Morrison to get some input from her also. And she also let me know today that she has had an opportunity to look through the last version that I've shared with her. So I think next week will be busy for me, but also a good I'll be collecting that input. But Liz and I have gone back and forth a couple of times already. And so I'm trying to capture in that PPS staff input as part of the proposed. So whatever input they may have, if I can reconcile it and just, then I will before it even comes to the policy or to the audit committee. And if there's feedback that we don't necessarily reconcile, I'll just keep the comments in and we can talk about it in the audit committee.
I think the draft you have in front of you is still very iterative from the legal team to answer that's really the question. That is not a final legally approved. Not that it's ours to approve, but I want to be really clear that it's still iterative and there's still feedback and work that needs to go into it and reconciliation. So when you get it, assuming you get to the policy committee, I think that's what I heard the plan is. There would then be the staff memo and the staff review and the input and the legal analysis that goes with it. So what you have is not yet that. The same thing that happens with all the other policies that you get at the policy committee. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering the order of spending time reviewing it before that, and whether, if we want to talk about it here, which makes a whole lot of sense.
So,
whether-
excuse me,
No, I
I
was
talked
just
to
gonna say, can it do an analysis, come back to us so that we're not reviewing something that then hasn't gone through legal, and then we can send it to policy? I just.
my suggestion is that at the policy, so it's a question of how the board is going to want to handle policies. This is a section 1, just like all of your other policies. And so we have deliberately, intentionally and appropriately so, wanted you all to do the board work that you did at the retreat. The dynamic or the protocol or the rubric, maybe is a better word, that you all used for the first policy would be to start from the policy itself, apply your values and your board imprimatur, for lack of a better word, then that goes to staff to then iterate from and give back to you. So if you follow that, that's a completely different approach than this. So it's a question of how you want to handle it. And with section 1, I understood my understanding, potentially flawed, but is that the board wanted to take that approach with all of section 1 for each of them. They are so substantively representative of the board. And so if you do that, it would be to take that back. And if you treat it like the other is a ones in section 1, would be to start exactly like you did with the board retreat on whatever 1.010 or whatever that was. So however it's decided to keep doing section 1, my suggestion would be to do that. And that doesn't mean this discussion can't happen, but it would start from the baseline of what was there. What are you trying to accomplish? Applying your values, and then iterate from there. And in that step, there would be a legal review. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
so
helpful.
It's a
Thank
little
you.
bit of, this is in a different posture, for lack of a better word, than the rest of section 1. So it's a question of how to integrate that and integrate what the board wants.
That's very helpful, and it is such a different posture because the experience for this is here, and rather than asking you to, whoever it is, to come to the policy and present to us. So I understand why it's here. I just want to make sure that we're reviewing something, not giving feedback, and then having it completely undone because maybe it doesn't pass muster. Legal
Well, and
muster.
I think more importantly, the understanding you all had as a board about how you would approach this section being section 1, how do you want to integrate that? How do you want to do that? And how do you want to take the feedback from this committee as one of those, but overlay the values with it? Though, I mean, it's kind of in a wonky situation, wonky posture, for lack of a better word. And you're right, you have a bunch of experts here. How do you then incorporate that? There's lots of ways I can see doing that. But given the retreat, my suggestion, just as a staff person of the policy committee, is that you follow the process that you all identified for the rest of 1 and do it the same way and iterate from there with the input of this group after that, or as part of that. Maybe it's a better way to say it. Does that make sense? And not that you have to agree with me. I just want to have made sense. Okay.
So the parts to clarify what I would prefer some feedback on are those 3 categories that I mentioned are relatively new to the policy. If you have a chance to look over those in more detail, maybe not so much the wordsmithing, but conceptually, if you feel good about it or if you have any questions, that would be the element that I would appreciate. Those 3 categories that I mentioned are the areas I would really appreciate feedback from you guys on, specifically sooner rather than later.
Could you repeat what the 3 are?
Yes, I can. So at the bottom of page 9 is the 3-year, or the risk assessment, 3-year audit plan, and annual audit work plan. So that section. The next section is the external audits and review section, and which is on page 11. And the third section is the implementation plan and validation. We already have an implementation plan that we do and utilize. This is just really formalizing the process in our policy, but it's still new to the policy, so. That was it. The implementation plan and validation is the 3rd category on the bottom of 13. So not in-depth feedback, but conceptual feedback, because that would be very helpful. So when I bring the updated policy, conceptually, I've addressed any conceptual concerns in the proposal at our next committee meeting.
Sorry, I have one more question. I guess the timeliness of this, I understand the idea of wanting to do this in the next couple of weeks, but we're in the big budget session. We've got a meeting next Tuesday that we're prepping for. Then we've got the budget listing session. Then we've got all. Is there a specific reason to get feedback to you in 2 weeks so that we can do this in June, or could it be?
The audit committee technically ends before it's reconvened. So when we laid out the agendas for the year, Director Sullivan and I did not realize that this was going to be on the agenda for the board at this time. But I just feel super lucky that it happens to have been. So it really led to it will help support the conversation. So I do think it's timely, but I see your point. And the I don't want to say urgency, but I will say that it did take a lot of my time to get to this spot, and I would like to not lose that momentum. And also, I really like to capitalize on the momentum of the discussion in the retreat. It just really resonated with me, and I think it will set this conversation up so well. While it's all fresh in our heads, it would just really, so that is the only real rush. I will just acknowledge if we go probably more than 2 months, I really have to refresh my memory on where I am at to be able to speak to it very well. So if we don't do it within 2 months, it would really be a loss of some efficiency on my part. Just to answer your question.
Well, and you're talking about agreeing with the concept, not
Yeah.
with exactly how it's
Right.
it's written. Okay, we are way over time already, so we're going to hurry it along here. Janice, thank you so much. I know that was a lot of work and a lot of good ideas there. So now we are going to talk about audit committee membership. And Janice, you wanted to talk about referring our 2 community members for next year, because I think they've agreed again, thank goodness. We're always glad.
Yes, thank you so much. I did put together a few talking points to talk about the value of consistency in audit committee membership. But I'm going to pass over those talking points because we're so late right now. But I wanted just to mention that I hope each of you takes the time to chat with me separately in the future about some of the research that I did as it relates to the value of being consistent in the leadership of an audit committee meeting. But to get to the exciting part of today's agenda, Director Sullivan has reached out to both of our community members. Both of our community members' terms end the end of June of this year. So the policy allows for reappointment of the community members if they're willing to serve for another term, and they have both acknowledged that they are. One element that I would like to propose is staggering their term. And so I met with both of them earlier to ask for their thoughts about potentially staggering the term, and they were welcome to that. And Jennifer mentioned this, if one has a lesser stagger, and Caroline, yeah.
2 and 3.
Yeah, and Caroline was willing to take the extra year stagger. So I was looking today, and I for the policy that says what the terms are, and I couldn't find it for today. So I'm really sorry. But we do need to have the audit committee refer our 2 community members to the board for reappointment. So that, what does they say, 2 years?
For 2 years, they may be reappointed at the end of their term. Is that not?
Yes, that is in our audit committee policy, but I think there is another policy that speaks to community member terms more broadly. So I just want to double check that before I confirm, but it is my hope that we will refer Jennifer for 2 years and Caroline for 2 years, the max. So that is the request for today.
Okay, and we don't do formal voting, but can we just...
Sorry, one more thing. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I forgot. I wanted to mention our student rep. So we have been so lucky this year to have Evan, and he is a junior. And in chatting with him, he has mentioned he's willing to take on another year. And I am so excited about that because I've been working with him on our building security audit, trying to let him give me as much as he's willing to give me input and thoughts on the student perspective, and he and I have been working on a survey. So it would be really great if he was able to stay for another year and kind of see that audit through fruition. Our policy does allow us to have 2 student reps. Typically what we allow the student rep to the board to assign committee assignments to the students. So that is the practice that we have been doing, and I would like to keep that and let our new audit student rep to the board have an opportunity to assign another student if there's one interested, and we can have a second one because our policy does allow us to have two. So if there is another student that would be interested, I don't ever want to pass up on the opportunity for a student to get to talk to a student about auditing. It just warms my heart. So we could have two, but I just also wanted to mention, because he's a junior and he has said that he's willing to, I will kind of send an email to the student rep, the new student rep. When I ask for a new student member, I'll also mention we'd be happy to have him back.
Yeah, but we can't quite, vote him in yet.
Yeah, we
right?
don't need to
We have
vote
wait
in
till next
relationship
year,
to that.
Because I
But
asked Janice about that. We want you in.
Yeah.
As long as you're willing to stay.
Thank you.
And remind me, did you come in November, was it? When did you first start coming?
November was my first meeting.
That's what I thought, yeah. And so I love the idea of you staying on, because then we could just keep you now instead of the new student rep getting their feet under them and then finding other students who are interested, and that perhaps the student rep, the new student rep, could find another junior who would be interested in perhaps being the senior the following year, and then we would have sort of continuity of someone for 2 years as a student.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's what we're doing with the DSC, like positions for grant. At last week's DSC meeting, we did discuss that we're gonna try and get these things set up sooner, because the reason that I started coming in November is because we didn't really set up board positions until October. But that process should be accelerated next year, so you guys should know before the first meeting of the year.
Good. Okay, so this is very informal, but can we have a thumbs up for referring these two appointments? Yeah,
Yeah, you can.
okay.
Double check with Christy to make sure, because she's a member. Is she popped off?
I think her daughter's performing.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, she definitely planned to be off probably by
Yeah,
now.
okay.
So, okay, next is for Janice. You're going to be talking about your audit update and status.
Yes. I'm so sorry we're running so late. I know in our last meeting I mentioned today may be a 2-hour meeting, but I tried very hard not to have it be a 2-hour meeting. So just very quickly, in the stack of documents, I provided the Office of Internal Performance Audit status update, and I will be very quickly go over that. And thank you. So I just wanted to give a high-level overview of where we are on our audits. Right now, we as in Mary Catherine has just let me know that she's wrapped up on the field work portion of the Measure 98. So what that means is I will start that review process and writing the report. And right now, I think we are on track to have that report ready to come to the audit committee in our June meeting. The next audit that is of our focus is the building security audit. Right now, we're in the planning phase, and like I mentioned, I have been working with our student rep to make sure I get some student feedback and input on the work that we have planning. But we are really close to wrapping up that planning phase, and then I'll be turning over like the field work piece of it to Mary Catherine. And we will, there's so much work you have, it will be a lot, but the wrapping up of the planning phase is getting really close, and we'll start into the testing phase very soon. And we are tentatively planning to wrap up on that audit in the fall. One element, when we go out to inspect the actual schools, sometimes it's nice to not have kids there, so we can get see where the cameras are located and all the things, but it's also important to do some touches, some inspections when students are in school. So the first couple of weeks of school, we'll do those final site visits and then wrap up. So early fall is what we are hoping for. Then the CTE audit, this I mentioned to you guys back in the fall that the scope that was previously approved has been outdated. So I have been waiting until we get a little bit closer to actually starting that audit to rescope it. So I will be working on that rescoping of the audit over the summer, and I'll bring it back this updated scope to the audit committee just for review before I actually get started, because I am going to modify the scope just a little bit. And then that will wrap up all of the audits that have been previously approved. So that is a really good opportunity, time-wise, for our new 3-year plan. Also, one of the things that we did in the fall is talk about future audit topics. And the audit committee, we talked and narrowed down a nice long list down to 3 topics. And for those 3 topics, I have been studying those departments, gaining information about what's going on, and preparing to propose a scope of work as it relates to those 3 topics. And we do not have the capacity to get started on any of these audits until next year. So we have a little bit of time, but it is, in the 3-year audit plan example, I walked through a couple, with a couple of you guys, like how these 3 topics could potentially be popped into what that plan would look like. So I don't think we'll lose any of this. I still see these topics coming to you guys as a proposal for an audit in the fall, but it will be part of a 3-year plan. Does that make sense?
Were we sticking with 3, or were you going to pare it down to the 2
we
that
only
were
get to
most-
pick 2. You're right. I'm so sorry, I forgot. I'm going to propose 3, but you only get to pick 2
Okay, that's what I
for
thought.
inclusion into the audit plan.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything else to bring up? We need to change the date. We need to change the June 18th date. If you have your calendars, can you look and see if?
So I looked before I came down for the meeting, and it looked like there may be an open opportunity on June the 25th, which is the following Thursday. It didn't look like there were any other board activities. I checked with the board manager about graduations, because I know that's a busy graduation. Sounds like that season will have wrapped up by the 25th. So that was my thought. I just want to throw that out there as a suggestion. Any other time will also work, but that's what I checked beforehand to see if it would work.
I know you often have Thursday problems, but is that over?
I don't have my Thursday. Let me see if I can look really quickly. You're right. I have the conflicts of all, which I missed again this evening, have all been double. Let me see.
I'm gone the last 2 weeks of June, so
So
I was
it's
gonna
no-go
miss
for
the
you?
18th anyway, but the 25th also wouldn't work.
Okay.
So you could Zoom from your tropical island.
Possibly got a pretty packed agenda though.
That's a
so.
real commitment. Patty, you're so good. And also, I think Michelle had another other topic that she wanted to mention before we wrap up. I don't want to forget to give her the opportunity to bring up her other topic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry to slip this in under the wire, but my staff brought it to my attention that I need to probably share with you guys part of some information that we're going to bring to the board on June 23rd is going to include a request for appropriation changes, a potential supplemental budget. And the reason for that is because as we have a very tight budget this year, if we exceed our major fund and function appropriations by more than 10%, we could draw another audit finding, unless we bring appropriation changes in advance. So it's complex. I wish I had more time to share with you about it, and I'm happy to send up a follow-up email to kind of show the timeline and process. But I just want to share with you as audit committee that that will be coming to the full board. And so I was hoping to have more details for you on the 18th, but it sounds like that meeting is being moved.
Oh, more details on the 18th.
Yeah, I thought that's when our
Now
next
it might
meeting
be
was.
the 25th.
Michelle,
Well, ideally, you should have it before the next board meeting.
Okay.
is that something that we got a finding on related to last? Okay.
Yeah.
Just, I thought it was, so
Yeah.
I'm so
So
glad
we're
to hear
super
that you're
sensitive
being
that we get out
super
in front of it.
responsive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, well, an email would be great.
Okay, I'll send more information.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And as always, I'm a resource if you need to talk it through.
Okay, does the 25th look okay?
And it sounds like the 25th is not going to work for Caroline.
Well, no, but- Yeah, well, we needed
So-
the 18th.
I try my best to accommodate our community
yeah,
members where we
right.
can. I know that technically our kind of committee work wraps up in the end of June, but we could potentially do early July if I'm here every day. So just whatever works for you guys, but we really do need to get one more meeting in before kind of we wrap up. One of the key elements we need to talk about in our last committee meeting of the year will be the policy, of course, we just talked about, but also my performance evaluation. That is something that the audit committee gets to provide a lot of input, and the draft is done by the chair of our audit committee, and she likes to get input from each of you. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that will be talked about. That needs to happen by the end of June.
Okay.
And I can probably do a summary email if we end up not meeting until July, but it needs to formally be submitted, completed, and signed off on by Chair Sullivan by June 30th. So if we don't have a June meeting, I'll have to send everyone detailed emails about how to get you input.
Well, we'll probably do that anyway.
Yes.
So they could give the input, I could sign off.
Yes.
So we could still have the meeting in July.
We could.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that that is something that kind of we talk about in that final meeting. But I will get some emails sent out next week to make sure each of you have an opportunity to provide Director Sullivan with some input. We'll probably follow the same process that we did last year, and I know some of you weren't around last year, but I'll go over the process. And she sends this out to all board members, not just the audit committee members. All board members get equal opportunity to provide input, but as the chair of the audit committee, she gathers all of that information and puts it together for us.
And it's only audit committee members that usually respond, so there you go.
That is also true.
But you can't.
Good.
And I'm realizing we don't have director split for choosing a new date. So maybe we should not do that now.
Shall we
Okay.
email for a new date?
Yeah. I think everybody knows just how hard it is to get us all together to come up with an alternative date. So
let's see if
I
we
will
can-
start
let's see if
the
we
email
can come up
chain
with one
right away.
that doesn't have Christy, and if it doesn't work for her, then we'll
Okay.
email. So let's see if at least we can get one for this group.
Yep.
So how about July 2nd?
That is the conflict that I have every Thursday.
Oh, that's Thursday.
No, I just looked it up. I don't have anything on the 25th, but it's right here in my calendar on the 2nd.
Let's see. How, how about Wednesday the 1st?
I think we just got a request from Roseanne to put off talking about finding a date.
Okay.
So I'll send some emails out. It was a good idea to try to get us to agree while we were here, but we will, I'll send some emails out tomorrow and follow up next week.
But are we officially canceling the 18th?
The 18th is officially canceled.
Okay.
I think so. It would be my request.
And anything else for the good of, oh my gosh, after 7 o'clock? Anybody else? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.